Difficult, uncomfortable, awkward conversations. Asking for money, breaking up a relationship, firing somebody, telling somebody they've hurt your feelings. How do you have those conversations? And most of us don't want to have them. We're scared that we're going to hurt somebody's feelings. We're scared the other person might not like us. They're just awkward and uncomfortable. But here's the real challenge. Have you ever been in a situation where you've had to have a conversation, or you know that you have to have a conversation, you don't want to, so you run it around in your head for a day, a week, sometimes longer, and that person is now living rent-free in your head. It's all consuming and you're constantly thinking about, I've got to have this conversation, got to have this conversation. There's a great quote about that. If you have to eat a frog, eat it in the morning. Get it over and done with. If you have a conversation with somebody, or if you're thinking about having a conversation, you don't have it, you don't know how it's going to turn out. But if you have the conversation, now you've got something to deal with. So could it be a really good idea to put on your big girl's pants, your big boy's pants, and if you need to have a conversation with somebody, go and have it. And there's a great quote when it comes to sales. If you don't ask, the answer's always no. If you don't have the conversation, you'll never know what the outcome's going to be. If you have the conversation, now you know what you're dealing with, now you can go forward from there rather than stewing it over. And of course, if you stew over something, if you're constantly worried about it, if you get anxious about it, obviously it's not a nice way to live. You get stressed. Stress causes all sorts of challenges inside your body. So here's a great thing, and I'm an old lady who's lived a long time, who used to live not wanting to have those conversations. Now I love them because I grow from them. Every conversation I have, whether it's a happy one or a sad one, a negative or a positive, any conversation I have with anybody at the supermarket, at the petrol station, or with a close friend, I analyse that conversation afterwards. Could I have asked better questions? How should I have dealt with that differently? How can I learn and grow from that communication? So if you don't have those communications, you can't learn and grow. If somebody's hurt your feelings, if you don't tell them, for example, now you're dealing with it. They're not going to change because you're not sharing with them that they've hurt your feelings. If you're scared of hurting their feelings, then we've got just a ridiculous situation. But if you have a conversation, you'll now know what kind of person they are. And that's the really exciting thing about all awkward, uncomfortable conversations. You know who you are, but the conversation will now work out who they are. So if you have to tell somebody that they've got bad breath, or they hurt your feelings, or they owe you money, or they did something that made you feel uncomfortable, or you don't like what they did, you know where you're coming from and how you feel, but you don't know anything about them yet until they're under pressure. And one of the really exciting things to find out is if you have an supposedly awkward, uncomfortable conversation with somebody and they handle it really well and they appreciate it. So I use feedback as an example. I call it feed forward. It's very uncomfortable for most people to give feed forward. To tell somebody, you've got bad breath, you did the wrong thing, you need to change, you need to do something better. Very uncomfortable conversation. But if you have that conversation and the person says, thank you so much, I really appreciate that you gave me that feed forward. I didn't know that I had bad breath. I don't want to have bad breath, and if you hadn't have told me, I wouldn't have known. Now you know what kind of person you're dealing with. But if the person gets offensive or defensive or offensive, so they get angry with you, or they justify what they're doing, or they just turn into a nasty, horrible person, I think that's awesome because now you know. So if there's an elephant in the room, point it out, share it with the person that's in the room with you, fix the situation, have the conversation so that you can move forward. Move forward without that person in your life because you realise, well, they're really a nasty, horrible person and I don't want to have them in my life. Or how exciting, they handled the conversation really well. Both of you learned and grew from the conversation and become better people because of it. And I'll use that quote again. If you don't ask, the answer's always no. If you don't have the conversation, you can't fix whatever the challenge is. The only way to fix something is to have a big person conversation, a mature adult conversation, not on the phone, not by text message. As an old lady, I find that really fascinating. People are resigning by text message. They break up relationships by text message. They ask for money via text message. Be a big person, be an adult, grow up, be mature, have the conversation, learn and grow from it. And could that be a great way to live your life to the max. Woohoo!